Hello and welcome to the Odd Couple podcast. This is Siddhartha.
And I'm Dr. Shish.
So today with us we have Nitya Neelakantan. She's a certified yoga teacher from Vyasa Yoga University and a level 1 certified yoga instructor. Before taking up yoga professionally, she was a learning and development professional. She has been a practitioner for 6 years and a teacher for 3 years now. She currently teaches yoga online. Apart from teaching yoga, Nitya is a story writer and soon-to-be published author. When not teaching or writing, Nitya enjoys traveling with her family, including her 2 fur babies. Welcome to the Odd Couple podcast, Nitya.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me here. I love listening to your podcast and I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, really, we're so glad to have you on the show, Nitya. I mean, we've been trying to get you on for quite some time and finally you've made some time to come on the show. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Nitya, I got to start the whole thing with the big question, which is, why yoga? Out of all the things in the world, I don't have any fond memories of this, form of art. So why yoga? Why did you choose it?
So, I have had a fascination for yoga, I think ever since I finished my PUC. I remember that, there was a huge auditorium and there was a workshop and he taught us yoga and he said, you have to try to move your ears. And I was so excited that I could move my ears, right? But then, of course, I never actually took it up after that. Life went on and stuff like that. And I don't know, I can say maybe yoga found me or I found yoga at a very depressing time in my life. I had just stopped working for L'Oreal India Private Limited because I had to travel a lot for that job, and my son was just about a year and a half old, and it was pinching me that I was traveling so much when I had a baby at home. So I quit and then I started freelancing. So I was working some and sitting at home more, having conversations with the walls. So So I think one of the freelance clients had mentioned that I should try out this workshop from Isha Yoga. And she said something that I actually found funny at the time. She said, it'll really improve your breath work. And I laughed at her and I said, what's wrong with you? We've been breathing from when we were born. But somehow it fascinated me. And then I went for that workshop and it was a 4-day workshop. It was really beautiful. But what I loved the best was when everyone was chanting together. I think the frequency, the vibration that I felt in that room, that really got to me and it sort of spiritually uplifted me. So that's how I decided to pursue yoga. Most people's journey is the opposite. They find yoga because they want to lose weight or physical aspect of it, and then they find the spirituality later. So for me, it was the opposite. I started off with meditation and pranayam and chanting and stuff like that. And then I decided that it was so beneficial. I thought I have to become a teacher and help more people with it. And that's how I started doing yoga.
The way you found yoga, I have to tell you how I lost yoga because
or yoga lost you.
Yeah, or yoga lost me because, I think we were in the first grade, me and Sid, and then we got pulled into, up from our PT class, that is, a physical training class, which was, free period, go play football, basketball. They called us in to do yoga. So that itself, made me hate that thing already. And I went there and I'm the most non-flexible person in this world. And then opposite me is Mr. Sid over here, who is like Master Ugwe over there, fully positioned himself and, in deep meditation. And I'm like, God, that folding your leg is just hurting my adductors. It was like, oh God, worst experience. And, that's where I lost yoga. Yeah.
Yeah, but luckily, I don't know why. I just loved yoga. I mean, that was the first time I did it. I think I liked not the yoga part, but more of the meditation part, because even when you're saying a prayer and stuff like that, when you close your eyes and you open it, everything's a little more blue, and at least probably with my eyes, it looked like that.
That's just the blood leaving your head.
So I love that experience that after meditating or after closing your eyes for a prayer or anything like that, and then you open your eyes and you see the light coming in, you view the world a little differently. And that's what I really loved about it. And I also pursued yoga about 15 years back, and there was this really nice old person with a long grey beard, the typical quintessential yoga teacher. And I used to wake up at 5 and go there and do the different asanas and the chanting, as you mentioned it. And I really, really loved it. But I think I'm the kind of person who needs an instructor, needs a guru, and pushes me to keep doing it every day. If you let me be I'll happily sleep till 10, 11 o'clock every day and not even bother about yoga. But I really, really loved it and hope to become your student one day, which takes me to the next question. Because he was teaching a form of yoga, I think it was Patanjali yoga or something like that. But I hear there are different schools of yoga. And how does a student choose which school to be, and how many different schools are there?
Okay, so if you look at the origin of yoga, right, it dates way back to, say, even in the Rig Veda, there's mention of Surya Namaskar, and even before that, there are texts that mention Pashupati teaching and things like that. But currently, if you see, schools of yoga are either Patanjali, which is Ashtanga Yoga, or Hatha Yoga. And when you say Patanjali's yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, you're talking about the 8 limbs of yoga, which is why Ashtanga, 8 limbs. So it talks about, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, then dharana, dhyana, samadhi. So these are external esoteric practices and then internal esoteric practices.
What does that even mean?
Okay, when you say things like yama and niyama, they are basically social conduct and then personal conduct. Things like don't steal, don't be greedy, help people, be clean, study, gain knowledge, etc.
Okay.
So that's what you mean by external esoteric practices. Not really physical, but it has to do with the outside world, bettering yourself in the outside world. Similarly, even asana and pranayama, they're both external. Then when you come to things like dharana, dhyana and samadhi, these are all internal. You're moving inwards. You're withdrawing your senses from the external world, you're concentrating on something, and then you're meditating. You're being meditative rather. You don't do meditation, you are meditative.
See, but this is the thing which I don't really understand, because, when I look at yoga from the outside as a person who knows nothing, I only see all those movements and postures. I mean, but there seems to be a lot more behind it, right? So is it also like your moral conduct? Do they teach you that also in yoga? Is that what you're trying to imply?
Absolutely. If you look at it from a larger perspective, it's not at all just the asanas. Asanas are just one small part of what yoga is all about, right? Yoga is a complete discipline. You could actually say it's a way of life, right? Because it talks about moral conduct, it talks about personal conduct, it talks about how you can withdraw from your outside senses, like being too greedy for food or sleeping too much. So you've got things laid down for all of this. And asana, actually, if you look at the name asana, it just means seat. Right? How did that name come to become a suffix for every posture? It's because in the olden days when yogis did yoga, the main aim was to finally attain samadhi. And to attain samadhi, you have to find stillness. You cannot find stillness with the kind of bodies and minds that we have right now. We are very restless. Our bodies have so many different kinds of ills. Our minds have so many different kinds of ills that we cannot sit still for more than 5 minutes. To find that stillness, they practiced asanas. Their bodies became more flexible, their bodies became stronger, and their minds slowly started calming down. Because it's very difficult to hold an asana without concentrating on the asana. So when you're doing an asana, essentially what you're doing is you're bringing your mind and body together.
Oh, now I'm starting to understand. So it's basically your level of concentration just to hold that asana is a type of meditative form which you have to maintain, right?
Absolutely. And you're concentrating on your breath, you're concentrating on what's happening inside your body. So that is in itself meditative, right? But it also builds strength and flexibility, it improves your health, it calms your mind. And because of all those things, you're able to sit still longer. When you're able to sit still longer, you become meditative. And then, I don't know if you or I can ever attain samadhi, but that's the aim.
I think I failed in first standard itself.
Let me remind you that even Poe made it.
Really, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. That's true.
Poe the panda made it, so we all stand a chance.
If he could be Uguay, I could definitely be Poe. Yeah, there's hope for me.
Inner peace. But I guess everything is to strive this inner peace, as we're trying to say, calm the mind, the body will follow and everything. And you were mentioning there were 2 different schools of yoga. So could you tell us a little more on that?
So we'll start off with Ashtanga. As I mentioned, Ashtanga is 8 limbs of yoga. And if you talk about the asana aspect, which is what most people see, Ashtanga is a series of asanas. So you have it broken down into standing asanas, sitting asanas, lying down prone, which is lying down on your front, and then lying down on your back. These are the series of asanas. About 84 or more which are practiced, and they are practiced in a sequence. Hold each posture for about 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and then move on to the next while concentrating on your breath. So you have to focus on your breath and even your gaze.
Okay.
All being very important. Where you gaze when you're doing the asana, how you breathe when you're holding the posture, how you transition from one posture to another. You have breath work even when you're transitioning from one posture to another. So that is the asana practice of Ashtanga Yoga. Apart from the asana practice, you have pranayama, you have meditation, all of that naturally follows. When it comes to Hatha Yoga, they're all similar. Okay, if you look at theoretically, everything that we are doing is finally to find meditative peace or for attaining samadhi. But in Hatha Yoga, the idea is to hold a posture for much longer. So they say that you can practice any number of postures, but you should be able to hold at least a single posture for long enough to expand your consciousness from inside. I mean, if you're having a hard time choosing between the two, Ashtanga is definitely something that's more popular. Hatha Yoga is slower and it brings you down to a more meditative state. Ashtanga has a lot more movement.
Where does power yoga fit into all of this? It's very popular. I mean, I hear it a lot. Power yoga, power yoga. You ask half the girls where they're going, I'm going to go for power yoga. So, what is that?
Yeah, there used to be something called hot yoga. I saw one YouTube video with goat yoga, some small goats on their back while you hold asana positions. But I mean, really, there's so many different new branches of yoga which is there, which becomes a fad for a very short period of time. Does it help the overall yoga thing, or is it beneficial? Does it make a difference, or is it better to stick to the traditional schools of yoga like Hatha Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga?
See, I think everything goes through a natural transition in life, right? Everything is dynamic. So looking at it from that point of view, it's bound to change. Nobody exactly knows what was written in, the 3rd century BC or whatever. You have texts, but you know how it is watered down after so many centuries, right? So you can't put your finger on it and say this is the exact way to do it. It will naturally grow, it will change, people will adapt to the current times, which in a way I feel has been good. If you see how Krishnamachari, Pattabhi Joyce and B.K.S. Iyengar have changed it or tweaked it a little bit, it has definitely made yoga more approachable. We understand that yoga is for all bodies. It's not that you have to be flexible to do yoga. Rather, you find flexibility after you start doing yoga. So you've understood that with the changes that came. And then, of course, there's always a chance that it turns out ridiculous at some point. And those probably are just a fad. It's a passing phase. They lose their traction when people realize that it's not really working. Like beer yoga. I've heard of beer yoga.
Oh, yeah.
Why haven't I heard of that? No.
This is something that we'll do after this recording.
Now, see, nobody gives us this kind of information, right? That's why we're having this.
In first standard, beer was illegal, macha.
That's true. So there are variations now, but I feel, do you think it's because of probably a Western influence? Because, a lot of this yoga has gone from here, because I don't think it was as popular as what it was now when I was growing up. But I feel like it's gone abroad, it's been westernized and then brought back over here. So do you feel that there's a big Western influence in all these type of new things and fads which come up?
If you look at the basics of Ashtanga and Hatha Yoga, I don't think much has changed. Even having gone abroad or to the Western world and then come back. But I'll definitely say that it's become a lot more popular. The people who took it abroad are also Indians. Pattabhi Joyce taught abroad, B.K.S. Iyengar taught abroad, Bikram taught abroad. So they made it popular there, but it's still rooted where it is. And I don't see that it's changed so much. The offshoots like your power yoga and all probably came out from there, but it's still rooted in Indian, I'll say, culture probably.
That's a great segue to my next question, because since it's so deep-rooted in culture and heritage, especially in Hinduism, there's a lot of confusion and doubt from people from other religions, wondering, is practicing yoga practicing Hinduism? There are a lot of people say, oh, no, my faith does not allow me to practice yoga because it's blasphemy and stuff like that. What's your take on that?
It definitely originated in Hinduism, right? There's no ways about it, and we're not arguing that. But that doesn't mean that it can't belong to everyone, because the ultimate goal is spiritual. It has nothing to do with religion. Even the chanting and stuff is from a very scientific point of view. It's because the vibrations work on your aura. They work on internal cleansing in a really beautiful way. So I don't think that you can look at it from a religious perspective and hold on to it that tightly, saying because it's a Hindu finding, I won't practice it. That's like saying I won't take a penicillin shot because it's against my religion or something like that.
If I can just, throw a comparison, I don't know if it's the right comparison or not, please correct me if I'm wrong. Like if I compare it to something like, let's say, Kung Fu or Karate, where it originated in China or Japan or wherever, and then it was taken abroad, it was taken to all parts of the world. Now, that's not a religion, or it's not come out of any religion, but it's part of their culture. You understand? So I feel there's a big difference where it's part of your culture, and whether it's a religion or not, whether it's part of a religion. So in that context, is yoga part of the Hindu religion, or is it just a practice which was practiced by these sages and which is drawn into our culture?
So I think it's a part of our culture and not a part of our religion. Right? You can say it's a part of our culture because it originated with Hindu sages and it was propagated by Hindu sages. But it has nothing to do with religion. It's not a religious practice at all. And if, say, somebody's religion prevents them from, say, chanting, maybe avoid the chanting. There's still a lot of other beneficial aspects to yoga that you can still practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, when we talk about the Surya Namaskar itself, I think there's so much of highlight on that one pose. It's just one damn good exercise, man. And if you look at it, they did it early in the morning. And, we always, as doctors, always tell our patients, oh, get on to vitamin D, But, take it to just get on par. But after some time, please go, once you're on par, go early in the morning and get some sunlight. And here you have something which they've been preaching and practicing, and they've called it that because early morning you get that morning UV rays, which is very much necessary for your vitamin D. And what better way to mix an exercise with that? So I don't think there's anything which is religious in that for anybody to pick on. So that's my 2 cents about it. So I feel it's just somebody's just written that down, and it's a good practice.
Yeah, and going a little further, because Hinduism is not a organized religion, right? As Nitya rightly said, how yoga is a way of life. Even Hinduism is a way of life. Now, if I don't believe in Shiva, Lord Shiva, does not make me a lesser Hindu. Or if I don't practice yoga, I'm still a Hindu. If I don't believe in any god, I'm still a Hindu. I think the other analogy, like you rightly said about Kung Fu and Chinese thing, or carol singing and...
Carol singing is a very bad example, Sid.
Okay. But it's fun. It's fun to do. It's not that I've suddenly become Christian, right? Or eat biryani and become a Muslim or something,
correct.
right?
Yeah.
So, at the end of it, I think it's about the benefit analysis at the end of it. Like you rightly said, sunshine vitamin D is a great example of them.
Absolutely. Like you said, I think the benefits outweigh anything else, the cons or whatever doubts you may have in your mind. Because ultimately it's about practicing good health and discipline at the end of the day. You start off with practicing an asana, it builds flexibility, it builds strength, and it helps so much with recovery. I've had a lot of students who've come in saying that, my doctors recommended that I do yoga because they've had bulging ribs, they have back pain, they have knee problems, they have weak knees, so many different things, even internal problems like digestive issues and things like that. So if nothing else, it's just for good health.
Absolutely. So on that note, we'll just take a quick break and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Odd Couple Podcast. A Pandemia Inc. production.
Are you ready?
A friendly fireside chat with friends where no topic is beyond a healthy discussion, punctuated with a laugh or two.
Check it out!
Tune in every fortnight on your favorite podcast network.
Welcome back to the Odd Couple podcast. We're chatting with Nitya Neelakantan, a yoga instructor and a practitioner who's been enlightening us with the benefits of yoga as well as educating us more about it. So, Dr. Ashish, the question is to you and not to Nitya right now.
Finally, I'm like a guest now, is it? You have to start treating me like a guest now.
I don't think so. So, Ashish, since you're a doctor, you're an orthopedic surgeon, and yoga has a lot to do with bone strength and stretching and this and that. Do you find that your patients who practice yoga had a faster recovery, or do you suggest yoga as a solution for speedy recovery? What's your 2 cents from being a man of science?
It's a great question, Sid, but to be honest with you and answer it, just my experience, I don't really have any experience of, patients who come from the field of yoga have a better recovery or get back to work faster or anything like that. But what happens very commonly with us is that when we have these patients who come in and undergo surgery, and after surgery they always come back and ask, when can I hit the gym, doc? When can I go and start running and stuff like that? And for us, those kind of loading on joints always, when you go in for high intensity workout like a Zumba, you're running on the treadmill and heavy lifting, you're always loading your joints. And when loading your joints, you're putting pressure on what we've just fixed, which tends to dislodge what we have fixed. So I generally do suggest start off with yoga, build up, stretch, because yoga is more of stretching and you're not loading your joints as much. It's more relaxing everything and stretching it out. So you're not putting pressure on one single point the way you put it when you're loading up. And once you develop that core strength and you feel like you're a lot stronger now, then you start progressing into your heavy workouts and your heavy things. So that's the way I see it. Probably, Nitya, when you find these guys come to you, when I send them to you now, how would you treat them?
So, how we approach it is, if anyone has had any sort of injury and they are recovering, naturally we tell them to go a lot slower.
Yeah.
But of course, it's a misconception that we do not load our joints in yoga. Yoga can be very intense based on what postures you're doing, but it's a lot slower. You can build it up. In yoga, you have modifications based on what kind of person is trying to do the posture. So if somebody who doesn't have a flexible hip is doing it, then I'll modify the yoga or the asana in such a way that it's more accessible to them. Similarly, if somebody is recovering from some kind of injury or illness, then we modify the postures in such a way that it's much lighter for them. So they strengthen the muscles around whatever their injury is, and then they build up from there.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd say that we start off with breathing exercises and, and, slowly build up from there. Yeah.
We will definitely do that for you.
Yeah, thank you, Nitya. Thank you.
So, breathing exercises, definitely. They're always a part of my class, but I make sure that we do it as we're winding down. It's always asana, pranayama, and then meditation. So, you start from active and then you move into passive. That's how it's usually done.
Okay. So assume somebody new is coming to join you. So how does it start? How do you get into yoga? Is it like, you go in and you start doing these asanas, or is it usually meditation and then you get into all these asanas?
So we start off with the asanas. Typically, if you join any of my classes, if you plan to join a group class of mine, I usually have 2 individual classes before you can join the group class so that you're caught up. And normally what I start off with is, there'll always be some kind of minimal warm-up and then always Surya Namaskar. Because Surya Namaskar is considered a very, very good cardiovascular exercise. It helps to improve your metabolism. It increases your overall energy in the body. So, my first 2 classes, I will take you through the steps of Surya Namaskar. Make sure that you get it right. Because I teach Ashtanga Yoga, then you start off with the primary standing series of asanas and you progress from there.
So, in the day and age that we live in, yes, we have teachers like you who take classes and you're doing it online now also. So that becomes very accessible. Because sometimes I get into this groove, like, I'm going to start gymming from today. So I go join a gym and I probably quit. Then I'll say, no, why go to the gym and spend money? I'll sit at home, watch some YouTube videos and I try and do. But there's so many options right now, right? Like I said, you can either go for a class, attend online, you can go on to YouTube. But how do you know they're a good teacher or not? What questions should you ask a yoga teacher to gauge whether they're good or not, because it becomes very hard for me to gauge. Otherwise, I go to a YouTube link, I click in, I'm like 10 minutes, I realize, you know what, this is way too advanced.
That's because that's my channel you clicked.
So, when you're approaching a teacher, always ask for a trial class, is my suggestion. It doesn't matter where they've studied, it doesn't matter how many years they've been teaching for, it doesn't matter what school of yoga they're from. If you don't vibe with them, you cannot do it well. And that's something that I've personally learned as well. I've had a number of teachers who I have not vibed with, and I've not been able to pick up anything from them. And I've just wanted to quit. So that's one thing. Teacher offers a trial class, nothing like it. Have a trial class, get a feel for it. See if you vibe well with them, both at a mental space as well as, how they instruct, what's their pace, will you be able to keep up with them, right? You'll understand that if you have a trial class. The second thing that I want to say, because you said, people go on to YouTube and Insta. Right now, Insta is like a galore for everything. Be aware of how you're doing it. It's not that there are no good teachers. There are tons of good teachers online. You can find excellent teachers through YouTube videos as well as through Insta. But practicing on your own can sometimes be dangerous. You don't know how much your body is capable of. You don't know how to monitor yourself. And there are very high chances that you'll injure yourself. So that's something that I tell people to be very careful about. It's not that you cannot learn, but you have to be very careful about how you're progressing.
Okay.
Another thing which I want to know is, how long does it take for you to become a teacher? Because if I start, then, I need to know the end.
The short answer is you can become a teacher even in like 10 days, 1 month.
Oh, please don't tell that to Ashish.
Bad answer.
You can.
No, why I'm asking you that question is there a school of is there like a pope of yoga, this comes down from there? So is there like an educational thing which qualifies you and says, here's a certificate, now you're a practitioner?
Yes, there are. There are several schools of yoga. If you look at it internationally, the International Yoga Alliance is what is highly accepted across the world. So if you have a Yoga Alliance certificate for either 200 hours, 300 hours, 500 hours, then you can call yourself a registered yoga trainer, RYT. So that's how they abbreviate it. And then you're a teacher. Okay. Now, SVYASA is very similar. They call it Yoga Instructor Training, and I did a 1 month course. It's very similar wherever you go. So if you say 200 hours, 300 hours and all, it's usually extended, and across 1 month they teach you all of these things. They instruct you on how you can instruct people. What is the right way to do an asana? What is the right breathing methodology? What are the contraindications? Who should not practice a particular asana? That becomes very important. You should be very, very aware of who should not practice certain asanas, right? If you have what kind of injury, what kind of asana. So if somebody has their periods, what they should abstain from practicing. If someone is pregnant, what kind of asanas they should practice. So you're taught all of that. But at the end of the day, I would say that that's just a piece of paper. It gives you credibility, but after that, how much are you invested in learning? As a teacher, are you continuously learning in order for you to better your classes?
But who's teaching you?
I am also learning.
That's my question. So is somebody teaching you, or are you just teaching yourself? Like you have these inscriptions?
No, I have a teacher. So I'm also learning online.
So why should I come to you and not to your teacher?
Because I'm learning advanced yoga and you're learning beginners yoga.
Understood? Okay.
Okay, teacher. Good answer. Fair enough. That makes a lot of sense.
No, but when we talk like this about, where you're catering it for this person, that person, you got a stomach upset, you got this, etc. Does yoga take on that little bit of a darker side of where it becomes like an alternative medicine? Does that happen?
Absolutely not. You won't find too many yoga teachers saying, drop all your medication, stop visiting the doctor and only do yoga, you'll be completely fine. If you see somebody like that, run in the opposite direction, right? Personally speaking, I would never advise anybody to stop visiting their doctor and throw all their medication out the window. No, it's just that it supports healing. When you breathe well, you heal well. It's as simple as that. As a doctor, you know how the parasympathetic nervous system works to calm you down, how the vagus nerve works to calm you down. And unless that's working well, you're always in a stressed situation.
Yeah, absolutely right.
It supports healing because when you breathe well, your body learns to calm down. And when you're calmer, you definitely heal better, right? It's as simple as that.
So I think I have one final question to ask you, Nitya. So you have a book coming out. What is it about?
It's an urban fantasy romance.
Wow, nothing to do with yoga.
Between a yoga teacher and a student?
No, that's your dream now, Sidhu.
Why do you think I'm going to join her class? Just kidding.
Now tell us more. So your book is coming out, and what's it called?
So this book is called Rudra Ban, which is Rudra's arrow, and it's an urban fantasy romance because there's a little bit of magical realism and it involves a curse and stuff like that. But it's set in the modern world with people who are out traveling and what they go through with each other. So obviously the romance part is between the two protagonists and how they end up breaking the curse.
And any of them practice yoga?
One of them does. See, all of my real life elements are included. They have dogs, they practice yoga, they love trekking, all of that.
A little bit of Nitya in that story. Okay, so if you guys want to find out more about this, then you got to buy the book. When is it coming out?
It's out on 3rd March, but it's up for pre-orders on Amazon right now.
Fantastic.
Brilliant. So thank you so much, Nitya, for this amazing, enlightening chat on yoga. There's a lot of things which I assumed yoga was, but obviously it isn't. And I'm hoping to join your class. I'll take a test class, as you suggested, and explore the world of yoga once again. And for all our listeners who are keen, we leave Nitya Neelakantan's social media handles as well as Facebook and other ways to reach out to her and join her class. I would sincerely urge you to do so, as well as do like, subscribe, share if you like this particular episode, and do check out other episodes where we cover some really fun topics. And Dr. Sheesh, I heard you're doing something new with another podcast.
Yeah, we're doing Beyond the Diagnosis, a completely medical podcast, and it's got off to a great start. We're out covering 3 of the major countries around Southeast Asia, Singapore, Malaysia, and India. So I urge you all to listen to it, and so it helps you understand your medical problems and get better knowledge of it.
Yeah, I really liked your episode on sleep and the benefits of sleep, and I think that was quite fascinating. So until the next time, keep tuning in to the Odd Couple podcast. Thank you so much, Nitya, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Nitya. Until the next time, see you on the other side. Bye-bye.
Bye.